So what's the deal now?
Just this woman thinks her son is missing.
Doesn't look like anyone's home.
What the fuck?
Here, look at this.
These tapes only affect you if you play it in a correct sequence.
Oh, fuck! Don't let go of me!
Hey, Mike.
Yeah?
Why did we work so hard to get this review done for this movie?
Because we're really persistent and have been talking about it for the last 3 weeks on Weekend at Pupcast.
We've been talking about it for a long-ass time. We were finally doing the VHS2 review. And I hope it's everything that you wanted, because this movie sure wasn't.
Oh.
I'm starting off kind of negatively. I'm not feeling that harsh about it, but yeah, we've been trying to do this review for 3 weeks now, and I just keep thinking about, we're trying that hard for this movie? This movie it's just so nothing, really, to me. It's like, I mean, in the interest of fairness, I'll say that Matt, our on-again, off-again reviewer, he liked it.
Yes.
And that's what we can say about that. But let's let everybody know what this is. Last year, an horror anthology came out called VHS, and I fucking love the premise of this thing. It was basically a bunch of guys break into a house, and it turns out it's the house of the guy who finds all the found footage films, and they were hired to go in there to find a VHS tape. But there's tons of unlabeled VHS tapes, so I was like, fuck, we gotta just start watching them until we figure out which VHS tape is the one that we're supposed to find. And it turns out, and every single one of these is a short film directed by a different horror director, and it's their own short found footage film. And I absolutely love the premise, but I did a review of it last year that you guys can find on our YouTube channel. But just to sum up for you, it starts off horribly. Halfway through the movie, I'm like, why the fuck did I pay for this? This is awful. And then after that, it actually gets pretty good. And the last segment, the last one that they did, was amazing. It was my favorite horror film last year, that last little short that they did. I love that thing. But, like I said, I had to, separate that and say, okay, well, let's compare the whole thing together. And looking at the whole thing as a whole, it just kind of averaged out to, at the time we were using letters, but going to what we have now, it would be a high 3 stars. Well, I gave it last year. Now this one, the worst ones are not as bad as the worst ones that they did last year, in my opinion. But the best ones aren't even close to the best ones that they did last year.
Okay. I think we'll disagree a little bit there. But
a little bit?
A little bit,
okay.
Yeah.
Alright, well yeah, let's go by the segments. These are the different segments, because last time it was a bunch of douchebag criminal guys breaking into the house and videotaping themselves doing it. This time it was a private detective and his wife or girlfriend, it was never really said, they had to break into the same house from last time, which I like that. I like that they kept the same house.
Yeah.
I also like that they changed the title of this to VHS2, because originally it was going to be called SVHS, which a lot of people forgot that before DVDs came out, there was a mid-stage in video technology. Before Laserdiscs, there was the SVHS, which was like the higher quality VHS. I'm glad they did not keep that name, because no one fucking knows what an SVHS is. But yeah, so they break into the same house, because they have been hired to find a runaway boy by his mother. And apparently he was sighted in this house. They go in there, and they find like a little laptop that is the boy. Well, he's not really a boy, he's like a 20-year-old guy. And he's talking about the tapes, if you play them in the correct order. And they're like zooming around, so you can't really make out what he's saying. But the woman decides she is going to start watching some of these tapes. So she starts watching it, and that's where our segments come in. Now, last time there were 5 segments, and this one there's only 4. In the first segment, it's a guy who, I don't know if he was blind in both eyes, or if he just couldn't see in one eye. But either way, he gets a robotic eye that is recording everything installed in his eye and allows him to start seeing ghosts. Alright, we're just gonna take these like one at a time.
Yeah.
And then he ends up meeting this girl. She has a robotic ear and she can hear ghosts. And it's found footage, so none of it ever turns out well. But what do you think of this one?
This one I thought was fairly interesting. The concept that this guy gets this robotic arm from this company, but they have to constantly record everything that he's seeing out of his eye.
Yeah, which they would even have like little blinks go across the camera.
Yeah,
which was interesting.
Yeah, so that was those effects were kind of interesting. And then he kind of slowly starts to see things. Looks like there's a person in his bed, and pulls the covers. Oh wait, no one's there, and then sees a ghoulish looking girl appear out of nowhere, and he locks himself in his bathroom for the night.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a little weird, how he meets this girl Clarissa in the doctor's office as well, and she somehow finds his house and comes over.
Yeah, that's what I love about this. He sees this girl who has the ghost hearing at the doctor's office she's leaving from, which is like, well, she got the ears from the same place. But she starts talking about how almost like it's a conspiracy, like he doesn't know what's going on. It's like, well, why the fuck are you still going back to that doctor?
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought it was just kind of weird. She shows up at his house, and then she's like, oh, then the dude sees her uncle, and she's like, yeah, I know he's there. He died, and, he's not a good person. And she's like, don't pay attention to him, and takes off her clothes and has sex with him.
And let's start fucking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what happens.
So, I mean, I guess good for him. I don't know.
Yeah, the VHS guys love tits. If you can tell that from this and last year's one. Which, I mean, I know that's like a horror trope. It's to throw nudity and sex into this. I understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, man, it is just right there. It's like, I would never have thought of a way of doing first person perspective of having sex with somebody in a horror film. It's rather interesting in a found footage film.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know, the ending of that, I mean, I guess we're just gonna go do spoilers for all this, because kind of...
Yeah, we don't have to do spoilers now. Let's leave it up to everybody.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But, I mean, it's found footage, so it's not a spoiler to say the footage has to be found, so it's not good.
Right.
Yeah. That's the number one rule of found footage films. They don't keep the camera.
No, not at all. Yeah, so that one was... Yeah, the ending was kind of interesting, I guess, but...
Yeah, the ending was kind of interesting, what they ended up doing with it. I will say that. I thought it did kind of end pretty interestingly. But aside from that, I kind of had a problem with this first segment, and with the overall wraparound segment of the investigator, of the private eye, that I had with a lot of the beginning of last year's one, which is that everybody in these two and in the beginning of last year's ones were just complete douchebags. And that's the thing. That was a big problem I have with a lot of horror, is that people think in horror films, well, let's just make everybody assholes. That way the audience won't feel upset when they die or when they have horrible things happen to them. It's like, that's kind of the point, is that you're supposed to kind of feel nervous when these people are about to have bad things happen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we'll wrap up to the next one. Which was titled A Ride in the Park, which was shot almost entirely with a GoPro camera attached to this guy's helmet. So, yeah. This cyclist is in what appears to be a forest preserve, is talking to his girlfriend, he's, just biking around the park for a bit, before they go meet up for breakfast or something. So, as he's riding, this woman jumps out of nowhere in the middle of the road, completely covered in blood, screaming hysterically, asking to help her boyfriend. So this guy gets off and goes to help, and I guess things kind of take a turn?
We can say what it is. We can say what that is. That's not too much of a spoiler, but
okay.
The entire premise of the second segment is that, yeah, he goes, he finds it, and finds what she's screaming about, and it's zombies. He finds zombies, he gets bitten, turns into a zombie, and then the rest of the second segment, it's a zombie film, but the camera's still strapped to his head, so it's a zombie film from the zombies' POV. Which I really like. Like, I dug this second segment, because to me, it was like, yeah, this is something we have not seen with zombies yet. I mean, it is this guy forced to, it's what happens to a zombie. Like, we see what happens when there aren't just normal humans around. Like, the zombies kind of semi-communicating with each other, or, he starts eating somebody, and then all of a sudden, halfway through, that guy comes back to life, and then just goes, oh, hey, like, I mean, and what, now we're both zombies, and we're just gonna go and walk around. It's like, yeah, and just, I thought that one also worked very well with the, one of the things that found footage does is that, it's supposed to kind of put you into the perspective of the person there, and I kind of dug that about this one, because, yeah, when you're a zombie, you're just kind of there along for the ride. Like, you're just going around, you're brainless, you're there, just based on hunger, going around, searching for something to eat. And in this, yeah, once again, you're still in the first-person perspective. You're still, hey, I got it right that time. You're still in the first-person perspective. You're still going around in the eyes of this guy. And yeah, just like being a zombie, you have no control over it. Like, it really worked for me.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it up until the very end scene. To me, that kind of I shouldn't say destroy is not the right word, but it kind of screwed up, like, the whole zombie mythology for me.
It is kind of different with the zombie mythology, but I've gotten to that point in which I'm like, there's so many different kinds of zombies. I just played The Last of Us, and those are fungus zombies. Earlier this year, we had the zombie romance movie where love brings zombies back to life. It's like, at this point, I'm fine with that. I'm like, I've gotten to the point which is like, zombie mythology is, as long as they bite people and turn them into one another, and they walk around trying to eat people, whatever. Do whatever you want with it beyond that. I can understand that, though, of saying, like, the zombie purists, the ones who are like, no, this is a zombie. That and maybe the voodoo people. That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, I can understand that. But to me, it's like, I've gotten so past, like, where zombies have gone so many different directions. I'm like, you can do whatever you want with it.
Right.
But yeah, so we're kind of in agreement that this second segment is pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah, in the first one, it's just kind of meh.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. So, yeah, it's like, okay. Second segment's pretty good. Third segment, this was the one directed by the guy who did The Raid, right?
Yes.
Yeah. This one is a film crew goes to interview a cult leader at his, like, base or camp or whatever you want to call it, where has 1,000 wives and he's raising children to think he's God or whatever. And each of them have their own little cameras. Each of them have like 5 cameras. They're each holding the camera. They've got a camera in their shirt, an invisible one. There's like a camera in some glasses. And yeah, basically what happens is that it's a cult leader talking about how the end of days is upon us. And suddenly demons and zombies and shit show up, and it turns out that he actually is bringing about demons and zombies and shit. It is... I know that sounds simplistic, but it's from the dude who made The Raid. So it's, as I said, I know you guys hated The Raid because it was so just nothing but crazy action. And I loved The Raid because it was nothing but crazy action. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a simpleton, but every now and again I can dig a movie that just goes, fuck your plot.
Right.
Yeah, and that's basically what this one was. It was basically like, it even tries to introduce a little bit of a plot in there, and it's like, no, we just introduced that to get a big demon out.
Right.
And then, which, by the way, someone might be watching this and suddenly, when they get to it, go, oh, well, that kind of spoils it. Motherfucker, if you did not know that was going to lead to this, come on, man. But anyway, yeah, I mean, this one, basically, it does start off with a tiny bit of a plot and then just go, nah, man, zombies and demons and shit. That's pretty much the plot of it. And I was kind of digging it, except I had a couple problems with it. Where are you coming from on this one, before I go into details?
Honestly, this segment is what saved this movie for me. I loved it. This was my favorite segment.
This and the last one that we reviewed are kind of even with me. I like them both, but for totally different reasons. Like, I kind of like the second segment on, like, an artsy level, for lack of better terms. Because I'm like, yes, they're doing something that we haven't seen before. I'm kind of actually feeling for this guy. Okay. Mm-hmm. In this one, it was like, yeah, like I said, every now and again, I can enjoy a film that just goes, fuck your plot. And that was what this one does. It is craziness. But I did have a few problems. One being that every single person and it was a problem that I had with this entire movie overall, which is that one of the things I like about found footage is that it is that concept of, hey man, it's just this camera, some guy's just holding it, they're running around with it, trying to figure out what's going on. It gives you kind of that feeling of being trapped in this place. And if you want to throw in multiple people with cameras, fine, that works out too. But this one, there were so many cameras, I was like, this isn't even found footage. Because, I mean, it's everybody has a camera in, like, their lapel. Mm-hmm. Like Ken in there, there's a guy with a camera in his glasses. And there's a point where even, like, the cult people bring out their own camera to start recording. And I was like, this isn't found footage at all. Like, this is, don't get me wrong, it's still cool. But, like, it was not giving me kind of the feel that I was going for here. There comes a point where it stops feeling like found footage, and it just kind of feels like a normal movie, but with shaky cameras that aren't totally in focus.
Yeah, I could kind of see that.
Yeah.
To me, it was, yeah, I mean, like, the reason you liked it, just the total batshit insanity that happens.
It is just balls to the wall nuts, yes.
Yeah, and just what happens at the very end.
Very end is pretty sweet.
It is pretty sweet, you know. And the thing of it is, I didn't understand what the thing said. I actually had to go online to look that up, and so I was like, "Oh, okay, this is great."
Oh yeah, I got that when it said it. I was like, "Oh yeah,
yeah."
But yeah, exactly, because there's a big ass demon in this thing. I'm not even gonna spoil it because there's other shit in here that's cool too. I'm not spoiling anything. Mm-hmm. Plus, the big-ass demon looks cool. I'm not... You trust me, I could tell you it's a big-ass demon, and you'll still be like, oh, shit, look at that thing. But yeah, that and also, like... I mentioned, I kind of had the problem with the camera, but it also felt like it just went on too long to me, this one. I kind of wanted the craziness to be compressed a little bit, because I started to get a little bit, like, there's a point where he's just running around, and every room he comes into, people are just standing around and then shooting themselves in the head. And I was like, holy shit, that's creepy. But we see that a whole lot. And eventually, it just kind of got dull to me, which is not something you should say about something that horrifying.
Yeah, I guess I could kind of see it. To me, I think it was so minimal, though, like... It was still entertaining enough for me, even if it did kind of repeat a few things.
Right. But not even, like, repetition. Like, after the segment's over, in between each of these segments, it goes back to that detective couple there in the house. Mm-hmm. And with this one, after it went back to the detective couple, I went, oh, right, this is an anthology. Like, I forgot about the rest of the... Like, it didn't feel to me like in the last year's one. Yeah, every single one of those, it still felt like part of an anthology, because it felt like, like it kind of went with the flow. This one, was, to me, it was just so big, it kind of stopped the flow of the rest of the movie. Like, I love it as its own thing, but as part of an anthology, it kind of hurt it a little bit to me.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Which, once again, I know that is a big, a tiny criticism to make this big as I am, but it is one of those things that to me it's just kind of like, looking at the film as a whole, it kind of messed up the flow of it. Because last year, there were like 5 films, so it was a good, it had a good flow going from one to the next. Mm-hmm. This one's 4 films, so each of them are larger, and this one's a lot larger. So yeah, it didn't feel like an anthology, this whole movie. It felt more like just I'm sitting here watching a bunch of shorts, which made the movie itself seem longer. And this was the longest one, so that's why I'm So I'm putting that that critique on the entire film, but I'm focusing it a little bit more on this one simply because it was the longest one.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, it's pretty kick-ass, this segment.
Yeah.
Which brings us into the fourth one.
The fourth one, yes.
Yeah, which I mentioned that last year, one of the reasons I still like VHS so much is it ended strong, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. This, I thought, was the worst segment that it ended on.
Yeah, definitely, by far. And overall, thematically, it just seemed completely out of place as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this does not feel like what you end on.
No, not at all.
The last one we talked about felt like what you ended on.
Yes, that could have been a perfect ending to it. So maybe had they cut out this fourth segment, maybe this film would have been a little better.
And let me say about last year, I said that last year it had such a great short that it ended on, that they actually had it, so, it's got the wraparound segment where it was following the 5 douchebag criminals who were breaking into this guy's house, and what originally happened is they watched the last tape, which was going to be the one about the guys going into the haunted house last year for anybody who saw VHS, and then it was going to cut back to those 5 criminal guys, and the wraparound segment was going to end. But what they ended up doing after showing it at
Sundance?
But after showing it at some screeners and showing it at some film festivals, they went, shit, people love that last segment so much, let's end on that. And they took the wraparound segment, the one that was going to lead into that final part, and the one that was going in the film, combined them and had the film end on that haunted house segment. They didn't do that this year, and for a reason. After this segment's over with, it cuts back to the detective couple, because, this is not a strong ending, in my opinion. Basically, the idea of it, it's a bunch of foul-mouthed kids who are cruising for a spanking, basically. Basically, just the kind of kids you just do not want to be around. Even, it starts with their parents going out of town for the week, because they just had to get away from these rotten kids. They don't say that, but I like to add that part there myself. And, there's a teenage girl, her boyfriend's coming over, and the little kid, maybe 12 years old at most, has invited his friends over, and all of his friends are cursing and talking about porn and all this stuff, and, I don't want to watch kids do this. This is disgusting. There's a part where they go in on one of the kids masturbating, and it's like, why the fuck do you want to see this in a movie? This is terrible. They have, the teenage daughter is, having sex, which, once again, don't fucking show that. But then they tie the camera to their little Welsh Corgi dog. So, it's, for anybody who thinks, hey, shaky cam is a problem I have with these found footage films, this is on the back of a tiny dog, so you're not going to want to see it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you might not want to see the first VHS either, because that thing is crazy shaky cam. But, which they fixed a little bit in this one. But, like I said, in this last segment, it's terrible. And also, the lights in this one are god-awful. I'll get to that later, but basically, they tape the camera to the back of this little Welsh Corgi dog, and suddenly aliens invade. And I'll give them this, I thought the aliens were pretty creepy.
Yeah.
But they live far out by a lake, it's just them, and these aliens invade, and the aliens start attacking them in the house, they're chasing them around, they're starting to, abduct them, and, that's basically it. I don't need to go into any more details,
Yeah, that's basically it. But it was just, it was so dumb. It did not fit at all with the other three themes of the film. It just kind of came out of nowhere. And I went and looked, and I guess I was a little surprised. The director of this segment is the guy who directed Blair Witch Project, the original. Which
really? Because I thought he would have been the one who did the zombie one.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, which I think was kind of surprising, because, that was, kind of a groundbreaking found footage. I mean, they basically started the found footage genre for horror back in 99.
You know what? It's weird. I'm having a drop the coffee cup moment where I'm turning around looking at it, I'm like, wait a minute, there's a whole lot of people cursing. Making stupid decisions. Okay. Fuck, it was the Blair Witch guy.
Yeah. But, yeah, but this was terrible, though.
The thing is, let me just say, out of the list of things that's a surefire way to scare me, aliens is one of those. Like, an alien invasion is one of those things that will always freak me out, because I'm scared of anything you can't run from. And, Jason, Michael Myers, you can run from those guys. They might be bulletproof, but you can outrun them.
Right.
Alien invasions always freak me out, because, like, what the fuck are you gonna do, man? It's here.
Yeah.
So I'll admit, personally, as a guy who does get freaked out by alien invasions, there are segments where you see, like, the alien guys, like, creeping around looking for him. You see those big lights off in the sky in the distance. It's like, alright, I'm getting a little bit of a scare here, but still, it's not what some guy who is specifically afraid of this one thing should be feeling. I'm even afraid... those are actually my two things. I didn't think about, but my other thing is anything happening while you're trapped in the woods. That is the other thing. Like, any of those films, Blair Witch Project, Evil Dead, any of those films, if it's set in the woods and you can't escape and there's no way of getting any help, that is one thing to surefire creep me out. So this is my two things that does freak me out, and best I'm getting is like alright, I'm a little creeped, I guess. Which, yeah, that should not be how you're feeling.
Right, but mostly it's just, like you said, it's just a bunch of little preteen, teenage kids just being a bunch of assholes. And
yeah, I mentioned that was my big problem with last year's one. And I even said earlier in this review, is that I hate the fact that filmmakers who make horror films think, okay, well, we have to make them all completely unlikable, otherwise people are gonna feel bad when they get in trouble. That's how you're supposed to... That's why you get afraid in a horror film. It's like... It's because you don't want this to happen to these people. It's because you can kind of relate. Right. The best horror films, in my opinion, are the one in which is like, shit, man, this person did nothing wrong, and they're still getting messed with by a demon.
Yeah.
And yeah, these kids are just the biggest shits. And yeah, they are getting invaded. And the other thing is, yeah, maybe it's because it's tied to the back of a dog, which, why on earth did he... I know why he thought it was a good decision. And I will hand the VHS series as a whole it's that one of the big problems with found footage films is that people are going to eventually ask, why does the person not drop the camera? Why are they still recording? And I will hand it to the VHS franchise as a whole each segment does, for the most part, think of a reason why the person doesn't let go of the camera. So the fact that the camera is tied to the back of this dog makes sense for why the camera would not be dropped. Mm-hmm. It's still a horrible idea.
Yeah.
Because you have got stuff where it's like, I don't even know what the fuck is happening. Like, there's a moment where the people run out of the house, and next thing you know, they're in some weird tube that's filling up with water. Yeah. I don't know what's happening here. Then all of a sudden, they're back in the woods again. Everything's fine. Now they're in a barn. I don't know what's happening. There's lights just flickering constantly, where you have no idea what's happening. And I know they're trying to go, oh, well, we're trying to create the confusion. That's the argument they always have. We're trying to recreate the confusion that they are feeling in that moment. It's like, that's a good idea, but when the confusion is so great that we, the audience member, can't tell anything, then it's bad.
Right.
Yeah, and I had no idea what was going on. And yeah, we said that we weren't really going to spoil it, but I've already mentioned... No, it's found footage, so nobody gets out of these things good. The last shot of this is the dog dying right there on the ground, like bleeding and like whimpering. And I'd like to say, go fuck yourself. That is like such a cheap cop-out move of getting emotion. It's like, we're going to force you to watch a dog die. It's like, that is one of the easiest triggers to get an audience to feel emotions. Mm-hmm. And it is poorly done in this.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, I still feel bad, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you feel bad, exactly, for the dog, but I mean, that's the point. It's like, how do you not feel bad for the dog dying?
Right, exactly.
And that is exactly the point. It's like, yeah, it's basically like saying, are you going to cry because I'm cutting these onions in front of you?
Yeah. Just a little segue, I just watched the ABCs of Death last night, which is overall pretty bad. But they had
That's a shame.
Yeah. But they had a segment that also involved the dog, which the emotion of that segment, infinitely better.
Yeah.
Than what they did with the dog in this one.
Yeah. And also, let me just say, I mentioned that because it's found footage, the camera has to be found. which always means that the person holding the camera, nothing good happens to him. It's a dog. You can have the dog get away and have someone find the footage on the dog.
Right.
You didn't have to do that. It was cheap. The last shot of this could have been, the aliens taking its owners away, and we could have had some kind of an emotional reaction to that. Like,
right.
Okay, we're the dog, and we're seeing our owners, our protectors, get taken away by aliens. Yeah, that could be emotional. No, let's just show the dog dying in a pool of its own blood.
Right.
Yeah, it's like offensive, that last moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still will say, I don't think it's as bad as the worst segments from the last one. But to me, the worst segments from the last one were the wraparound segments starring the 5 douchebags who would go around and rip girls' shirts off to videotape it.
Right.
I think those guys are much bigger assholes than the 12-year-olds who curse a lot.
Yeah. That's true.
But yeah, it's still, like, it's one of those ones in which I will admit, as a guy who is creeped out by aliens, those were some creepy-ass aliens, so I can at least give it that.
Yeah, and that's about it.
That's about all I can say for this one, man. I mean, because that is really the biggest problem with this, is like I said, that last year, that movie, even though it evened out to being just about average, I still think back so fondly to it. I still think, oh my god, I love that movie, even though I know I don't, simply because the last segment is so good. This one, when I think back to this, I'm just thinking of that really shitty alien thing, and then the last little bit of the detective story after it comes back, which, man, that one was also not good.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the douchebag wraparound guy's ending last time, but, I mean, it was better than this one, so... I guess as far as our ratings go, once again, I will give it a high 3 stars. I will give it the exact same review I gave it for the last one, except last time I was like, okay, yeah, but you have to watch that last bit of it. I mean, it's so good. With this one, I'm like, I'll give it a high 3 stars, but I'm not gonna go up to people and tell them, okay, yeah, when it comes on Netflix, you gotta at least watch this part. It's like, yeah, if you want to watch that part with the weird, crazy demon cult, go ahead, that's pretty kick-ass, but I'm not as enthusiastic as I was about the Haunted House one last year, but that could just be because the Haunted House one ended it. It left such a good taste in my mouth, whereas this one I was like, hey, alright, oh.
Right. Yeah, I probably would give it 3 stars as well, probably just straight 3 stars. Basically the Safe Haven, the Indonesian cult segment, basically saved this film for me because, I was not, I was like, okay, the one with the eye, okay, that's all right. The Ride in the Park was, I was all on board until the very end, and then the last one just, didn't belong in this film whatsoever. But yeah, Safe Haven really saved this for me. And I wasn't even that big of a fan of the Raid, but, this was insane, but in a good way.
Insanity works for everybody in its own location. I mean, even our pretentious reviewers who are like, no, I do not see the purpose of any of these films, will still love the shit out of Fast and Furious films. Everybody has that one insane genre that they love. So yeah, insane horror, we need more of that.
Right. And
we need more demon babies.
More demon babies, yes. And I know something that I know Matt, when he and I were talking on Twitter after we both saw it, I know he was saying that he really enjoyed the overall theme of the ghouls/zombies, at least with the verse 3 segments goes. And I guess even with the wraparound segment as well, to an extent, which is just all the more frustrating with the alien abduction segment. Yeah, because it's, they're bringing in this theme and it's working, overall it's working, and then just this last one just completely comes out of nowhere and kind of fucks it all up, honestly. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, that's also true about that. That is why I also said about the last one, is that you need a editor-in-chief for this movie. You need some guy who looks at all of this. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I love the idea of them handing out these little segments to 5 or 4 different directors and saying, go do whatever you want. But when they say, okay, this is what I want to do, you have to have some guy there who goes, we kind of already have somebody doing the exact same thing. or that does not fit at all with this. Which I'm fine with them not doing a theme. I'm fine with that. But when the other three guys are saying, okay, we're doing this, then it's like, okay, 75% of our film is this. We can't have the other 25 not be this. It's like, if more than 50% of your film is one thing, then you need to realize, are you going to double down on this and have that be the entire theme, or are you going to cut back on it and let everybody be completely different?
Right.
Yeah. But I will say this, even with my problems with this one, I still want them to make a third one, which they will. This didn't even come out, 6 months after the last one?
Yeah, I guess so.
Actually, it was, because I forget, it came out in theaters in October, but it was on, on demand and in theaters, a full year. So yeah, they did make this a year later. And they're going to make a third one, because no matter how shitty this one does, the great thing about found footage films, you can film that stuff on a shoestring budget. I can dig in my couch right now and be able to fund a found footage film. So
yeah.
I do hold out hope for the future of this franchise, that eventually they are going to get it right. And if they don't, I'm going to go find that house and break in myself until I find 4 or 5 really good tapes in there somewhere. I'm going to edit my own one of these together.